So, this has nothing to do with anything, but I want to show you guys this pottery I made before I get into it. I made these, and I made this. It's so fun to make things. Speaking of making things, Blackout Poetry. I'm gonna roll up my sleeves. I think it'll look cuter. Hey guys, it's Emily. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to discuss Blackout Poetry, which, a little random, yes. I'm not exactly a poet in that I don't really write poetry, but I am a poet in that I do sometimes write poetry. Depends on what your definition of poet is, but I identify more as just a writer, generally of fiction. But I do think it's beneficial to do things that are different from what you're normally doing and experiment and have a good time and do different creative processes to really branch out and, see what ideas come to you from doing different forms of creative work. Just a little more background on my experience with poetry. So in college, I did take a couple poetry classes. You have to take a poetry class to even start taking other creative writing courses at Northwestern. That's where I went. So it was the first creative writing class I took at Northwestern. I had a wonderful professor, Russell Price. Check out their work. Incredible. Really made me love poetry, even though I was never a big poet to begin with. I was so excited to go to that class and do poetry because they made me so excited for it and really supported me as a writer. And then I also took another poetry class with Natasha Trethewey, which was awesome because I had read her book Native Guard before taking her class, and I was super excited. I feel like I did a lot of great work in those classes, but honestly, outside of those classes, I didn't write a ton of poetry. I would get into a kick for a little while after the classes, and then it kind of just fell off. And I go in and out, sometimes I'll get excited about poetry again and write a few poems here and there, and then for a while I was carrying around a little book, which I should start doing again, but I was carrying around a little book to write poems in whenever the mood struck, and I wrote 2. So Blackout Poetry. Blackout Poetry is basically when you take some other work, some other newspaper article, magazine article, novel, whatever you can find, and you make a poem out of it. And the way that you do that is that you basically will go through, find interesting words, phrases, you just kind of find words that speak to you and you think will form a poem, and you black out the rest, and ta-da, poetry. Easy. So I feel like some people maybe don't necessarily think of this as serious poetry. I would disagree. Just because you didn't write it all from scratch yourself doesn't mean it's not poetry. You were given a strict set of words to work with, and from that you created something new, right? Right? I think that's poetry. Especially if you are having trouble writing poetry yourself, it is good to start with something on the plate already and take away from it. I think that is really beneficial. The first time I did Blackout Poetry was in my first poetry class with Russell, I believe. I don't totally remember it. I don't even think I kept the poems that I did. Probably not. But it was cool. I had never done it before, and it was fun, and it's constraining, but in a way that is freeing. So the reason that I did Blackout Poetry was not just because I wanted to explore a new creative art form. I get really caught up in my work that I'm doing. I'm sure if you watched my writing blog, you heard me say that I was getting bogged down a lot. So that's why it kind of was perfect that I substitute taught this class that was doing Blackout Poetry. And I wasn't even supposed to teach this class. I was supposed to do an art class, but they were like, oh, we see that you're a writer, so you should do this English class. And I was like, I do art too, but it's fine. And it actually ended up working out really well for me. The plans that the teacher left for me as a sub were to have the kids do Blackout Poetry. And the kids weren't super into it, unfortunately. They either didn't take it seriously at all, were drawing in magazines, or they took it too seriously and were like, is this a poem? Is this right? Did I do this correctly? And that kind of sucks. I wish that I had more time to spend with them, or maybe create my own lesson. And the response to that is become a teacher, and you can teach the kids Blackout Poetry the way you want to. But I don't know. That's a thought I'm mulling over. But yeah, so a lot of them were just kind of drawing on the magazines, on the faces, not drawing on a poem. Because with these Blackout poems, you can like do art. Like for one of the ones that I did myself, I did a little art with it. It's, fun and creative, and you can do whatever you want basically. But these kids were mostly just like drawing on the faces in the magazines and making them look funny with like mustaches and stuff. So not really the goal. I think it would have been better if all the pages had been more like, just like pages that came from a novel, which like we don't want to be tearing up novels, but you can go to Goodwill and get some old falling apart like book and just use that. But I think it is possibly better to have more of a blank slate so that the kids have more room to do something fun. And honestly, maybe I'm being a little reductive in that by saying that, because some of the art that the kids were doing on these faces was actually not bad. It was pretty cool, but I think it would be better to have the option and maybe not have so many like faces that they can draw on, or I don't know. Maybe that's not the answer, but it was just kind of defeating to just see them drawing funny faces and then quickly like crossing out a couple words on a page and being like, okay, here's my poem. I wish that I had been able to engage with the kids more and create a lesson plan myself that wasn't just me holding up a stack of papers that the teacher left me. But I still think it was cool, and I think even if the kids didn't think it was the coolest thing and wanted to play Deal or No Deal, I tried. But while they were working on theirs, I decided to work on a few of my own. I did like 4 or 5 classes where we did Blackout poetry that day, and so I created 4 of my own Blackout poems. In every single one of these, I accidentally crossed out words that I meant to keep. Yeah, I'm bad at this. I'm bad at Blackout poetry, but I'm still going to read you the ones I wrote. This one has no title, untitled. You have a chance to make an impact. They all looked on. The skills are there, but there's something. He left. This year sparkled with lights. Waited to let him go. Back on, next day, he drives, he drops, moves out, takes 3 steps back, looks down. Noble lights. He felt nostalgia. He was living vicariously. He wanted to be those lights. He looks up. Kicks bronze. The lamp, a firefight unseen. Low soldier, now dead. Noble experience of inconceivable pressure. With these poems, I do feel like they do still have an inkling of what that original story was speaking to. I kind of see it as still holding some of that because I know what the original article was about. But if you didn't, you might kind of see it more in a different light. You might have a different interpretation. So I think there's definitely still value in that. Now, the second one I wrote, erased/wrote, there's a picture of a catfish on it. Lurking. Reputation most hallowed. Image conscious. Convinced of sincerity. Every excuse. Every stretch of the truth. The freakish, unprecedented nature of the affair. An online memory. In honor. That, too, is astonishing. Or maybe not. Nobody knows how to behave. The only surety is that it can ravage everything in its path. What's left is a ruin, broken belief, a million little pieces scattered. All right, the third one I wrote, I decided to do a little art. But once again, I messed this up. It was supposed to look so pretty and be my best one, and I messed it up because I accidentally covered words that I wanted. It should be free to cross the threshold of the human voice, to write letters to the outer world by a little window. And like I said, you can do like art like this with them, and I think that adds so much to it and presents this greater opportunity for creativity and kind of broadening what the poem is. So, last one. The sound of peace, the cauldron of contention, the anguish, the grieving, the humiliation. And I was there to make more, nothing remotely picturesque, simply silence, shifting, pungent and heavy. Those were my found poems. I'm just really glad that I happened to be studying that class that day because I was so excited to do these, and I had a lot of fun, and I wish the kids had more fun with me, but, maybe one day I will be teaching my own class, and I will get them to love blackout poetry, if not blackout poetry, some other form of creative writing or whatever. Please share it with me if you do your own blackout poetry. I'd be so excited to see it. Tag me on Instagram, whatever. I'll drop my email down in the comments so you guys can pass it along to me, because that would be super cool. Okay, this is me just jumping back in real quick after I have already dismantled my filming setup and don't want to put it back up to just let you guys know that I'd really love to do more videos like this in the future, where I do some sort of fun, more kind of experimental type of writing, whether that's poetry or some different kind of short story prompts or whatever, fiction, nonfiction, whatever, just kind of trying out some fun, different kind of stuff like this. So if you guys would like to see any more videos like this, where I do some different kinds of, writing, just kind of having fun or experimenting and then sharing it with you, just let me know down in the comments. I definitely think this is something I'd love to do again, but I want to hear your input. And if you have any ideas, definitely let me know. Before I go, just one last look at my pottery. So many forms of art to create. My friend said the colors were fun and moody. What do you think? Fun and moody? I know it has nothing to do with the video. I'm just so excited. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you had a good time, or if you didn't, like and subscribe anyway. But I will see you guys in the next one.